want you to know that children did not harm this family. Not just the people here, but the people back working at the hospital. We want you to know that. We are here because we believe on behalf of the hospital provides safe, evidence-based medicine. And we're here to defend the hospital right to practice that medicine. And I've put up a list here of the witnesses because you've heard from a lot of people, so when we talk about witnesses, if this helps orient you to who's who. This, on this side, is who I represent. On the other side, people you've heard from I do not represent and who we are not responsible for. It's almost Thanksgiving, so I put up the pie. And I don't know if this is an interesting memory, but way back when we did jury selection, you may remember we had a little bit of fun. We talked about pie, what my favorite pie was. I've learned that some people don't like pumpkin pie, which is incredible to me, but that will be an interesting topic at Thanksgiving. But the reason why we had that moment was because there was an incredibly important question that followed it. Can you judge this case fairly based on the evidence? Can you hold the plaintiffs to their burden? They have the burden to prove the claims. And in fairness, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Whitney have welcomed that burden. And most importantly, can you reach your decision here based on the facts and the law and not on sympathy? And that's important because this is a sympathetic case. Nobody is denying that this is a sympathetic case. In fact, if you didn't feel sympathy in your heart, you wouldn't be human. But the judge has instructed you, and everyone here took an oath to make sure that their verdict is reached on the law and the evidence and not on sympathy. In order to know how we got to All Children's, we need to take a little bit of a step back, and I think it's going to be very helpful if I can walk you through the treatment and what happened leading up to All Children's, because it's almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie where you saw a bit of the end and a bit of the middle, then something in the middle, then something at the end. And what I intend to do with you is walk you through. And actually, the case begins before the 4th of July. You heard from Dr. Witt in his deposition testimony. He spoke fast, but these records are in evidence. And by the way, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, there's so for example, this would be Defense Exhibit 3050, 1 through 4, if that helps you. It's something you want to see. Before the 4th, with the cough that you heard the audio of, and Dr. Wyndham said there's nothing that I can see wrong with the lungs. The pulse ox is normal. And he says something really is not right. This is not just asthma. He advised the Kowalskis to watch the steroid use, and that the parents were arguing about taking her to the emergency department and question the role of family dynamics. We know from this picture, on July 3rd, my and her brother were participating healthy, normal, in the local July 4th parade. We also learned about CRPS. We learned a lot about CRPS. We learned from almost every expert here that it starts with an injury. But what we saw when the Kowalskis presented to Sarasota Memorial Emergency Department, that the onset of this was getting worked up about the 4th of July, and when the fireworks began going off, there was some trouble with breathing. We know in the note, Beata Kowalski gave the prednisone, an IM, intramuscular, a shot of Benedict's visit. This emergency doctor, Dr. Brett Williams, noted his concern of a potential psych component. We orient you to the several presentations of the All Children's Department. The first one was July 6th to 11th. And by this point, Maya had presented in a wheelchair within 72 hours after the initial onset. And of significance, she was seen by a pediatric neurologist. Very early on in the presentation, Dr. Joseph Casadante of the All Children's Pediatric Neurology Service wrote that this was an unusual presentation. It's associated with what he believed was a habit cough, putting his impression in agreement with Dr. Wyndham. Physical therapy was consulted because of the presentation in a wheelchair. And at this point, we start to see what starts to appear more and more in the records. which is that Maya, patient, wants to make sure therapy stops, therapy, occupational therapy stops, which says so, and that, according to mom, Maya needs more pain medication. On July 10th, and the initial diagnosis was chronic steroid use in the habit cone. Less than a week later, Maya comes back with her family, all children. So now we're on July 17th of 2015, so this is still more than a year before she comes to all children's. And when I want you to, this is an important piece of information. This is from Joint Exhibit 100854. When the plaintiff said to you in their case, nobody at all children ever suspected conversion disorder or somatization. Remember, I said that to you prior to October 2016. It's right here from Dr. Kilgore. In the history and physical from July 17, 2015, her differential diagnosis included psychological pain, conversion disorder, and somatization. And it's important because in opening argument, you remember the plaintiff told you that at the end of this admission, this is right before they go to Lurie's, the doctors threw up their hands and said, Mr. Kowalski, we have no idea what's going on. The record says otherwise. The record says even at this early date back in July of 2017, the differential diagnosis of a psychological pain conversion disorder was in the records. Now, again, conversion disorder does not mean that Maya's not feeling real pain. Let's make that very clear. But there's a psychological component to this that does not require ketamine, and we'll talk about that. Now, what we unfortunately start to see a pattern of is what the defense would respectfully suggest is a history of unnecessary medications given at dangerous doses. Unnecessary medications that are given at dangerous doses. We started back at this admission on July 20th, 2015. And it started. The nurse noted Mrs. Kowalski was adamant that they would need a PICC line, peripheral inserted central catheter for transfer, but the all children's team warned that doing that with a commercial flight was both inappropriate and dangerous. The Kowalskis made their way to Lurie Children's Hospital. For a second opinion, totally appropriate. They're going back to their trusted Children's Hospital in Chicago. World-class hospital. And we heard from the emergency department physician, Dr. Petzenberger, that upon his first visit with Maya in the emergency department, Maya was able to show good upper and lower extremity strength by kicking with both legs. And now his diagnosis is fitting that of Dr. Kilgore, that the behaviors were concerning for a psychiatric component, possible conversion disorder. And again, this is not a question of somebody saying that Maya is faking it. This is real, but it calls for a different treatment pattern. Now, a lot of what you heard during cross-examination was, are you an expert in CRPS? You remember this. Every doctor, are you an expert in CRS? Well, they met one, and you heard from them. Dr. Gaddy Revivo from Lurie Children's Hospital, board certified in adult and pediatric medicine. He testified significant experience with CRPS. He told you it was regional, and he used the Budapest criteria, and then he started what we believe is the evidence-based medicine, and it's simply this. CRPS or conversion disorder, the treatment is physical therapy, occupational therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and at Lurie's, ketamine intrathecal clonidine pumps are not what they used. Then there was one of those things where also a dramatic moment at trial where my partner, Mr. Hughes, put up the picture of one of the scratches that all children's plaintiff claims is a CRPS lesion and asked him, what do you think? He said it was a scratch. That was his opinion, which is going to go, we're going to come back to that when we get to the old children's division. She was seen by a pediatric psychologist, Dr. Lowry, who also noted an exam inconsistent with the history, and again, their belief that this world-class hospital was conversion disorder, but importantly, her recommendation, as she told you under oath, was for non-pharmacologic intervention for the pain. Also heard testimony from Dr. Elizabeth Burke. She was a pediatric hospitalist that at that time was also assessing complete complete and normal strength in upper and lower extremities, and believed this was triggered by conversion disorder and wrote it in her note at Defense Exhibit 3032-127. And she specifically wrote on that date back on July 24th, 2015, that the exam was not consistent with the history, which raised the concern for a psychiatric component. And this is the important part. She will likely benefit from a therapeutic program that combines physical and psychological therapy to address both weakness and pain access, and with the appropriate therapy, she's going to return to baseline. Remember that, because this is the exact recommendation that's made at all children's, as we're going to see, and not just all children's. The family returns back to the Tampa Bay area and checks into Tampa General Hospital under the care of Dr. Kornberg. Dr. Kornberg, on his very first visit, writes in his note, and again, this is at Defense Exhibit 3047-21, that there were some inconsistencies in his exam. It's okay, but his impression is now exactly the same as what Dr. Kilgore wrote at All Children's, which is exactly the same as what Dr. Byrne wrote at Lurie's, that this is psychological factors affecting physical condition. His first impression of the case. Then we get to Bonnie Rice. It's an interesting comment about Bonnie Rice in opening argument. You may remember it, you may not. But the plaintiff said, this is the Kathy Petey of Tampa General. Like there's a county-wide or Florida-statewide conspiracy among providers who've never met each other. But they said it because they don't like what she had to testify to. Because what Bonnie Rice testified to was that there was a psychological component, and then talked about some of the family dynamics that Dr. William talked about. And I don't mean to bring this up to cause any more, embarrassment, but this is an important issue. Because what Bonnie Rice said was that Maya was telling her about how her mom was working and how she was trying to get her attention. She talked about the feet going inward and outward volitionally. And she talked about how mom was respectfully asked me to see if the condition would improve. And that there were multiple stories about falls that Maya told them at Tampa General, and they put her on video monitor. Her own independent assessment, reassessment a week later, and notes volitional movement in all extremities, documents that Maya is now asking for more oxycodone when mom is present with her. Saying the same thing as nurse practitioner Rice. And then we get to what I believe he found was repeated a lot of the same statements that practitioner. The plaintiffs have tried to contradict this and have to. They have to. Because what's written in here tells a story. Kowalski and Jack Kowalski. October 11th, I had another supersized visit from MD Dr. Smith, who was sent by Child Protective Services to investigate. The question of apparent agency arises in terms of what the hospital held out and what the Kowalskis understood. It's right there. This is an easy one for you to check the box on. Let me transition back to the medical care. If there's a document that I believe you should spend time on, it's the neuropsych report of Dr. Lewis, because it answers a lot of questions. Not the doctor from All Children's Hospital. Okay? He met with Maya and submitted a psychological report on October 18, 2016. We can walk through this. Maya denies a lot of statements in here, although in fairness to Maya, she said she didn't read it. The plaintiffs have tried to contradict this, and they have to. Right? They have to. Because what's written in here tells a story. We'll leave it at that. Joint Exhibit 1046-0007. The first thing that I thought was important to recap here is Maya was drugged up, so the statements she made couldn't possibly be true. Remember that. Except, in the very first part, they talk about the 3-hour session going on, and it was noteworthy that Maya wasn't in pain because she hadn't taken any pain medication that morning. And talks about some of the abuse that, we're not here to over dramatize, but it's there. And then she talks about childhood memories and her fear of being told about not 72 hours, but
saying, one would think that they would be right on top of the very latest treatments, right? They weren't. And they relied on this Sally Smith character to come in, and she's a pediatrician. There's nothing against pediatricians. I'm not down on pediatricians. I'm down on pediatricians who think that they're neurologists or anesthesiologists with a subspecialty in CRPS and a subspecialty in ketamine treatment and treatment for what is known as chronic CRPS. See, Maya had already been through all of those things that Johns Hopkins was suggesting, and Beata knew it. Beata knew the only thing they had within that first few hours they were questioning them. So tensions were getting a little hard. Are you going to be able to increase the amount of ketamine for my kid or not? No? We're out of here. Wait a second now. This might be dangerous. There might be something wrong here. Now we want to leave. Okay. Well, just let us hold on for a second. We'll see what we can do. Ask yourself this. Where were their psychiatrists? They brought in little bits and pieces of other hospitals, psychiatrists, or in one case, a nurse's assistant, pediatric physician's assistant, who was a nurse, to make a diagnosis or a potential diagnosis. And they brought in another instance, a nurse in another hospital who thinks this might be conversion disorder. Ladies and gentlemen, where did you see their expert come in and confirm any diagnosis of conversion disorder or any psychosomatic condition that outweighed that it was CRPS? They're Johns Hopkins. They can't find a psychiatrist to come in and agree with them. Attacking Beata. Why go after Beata? I guess it was easy pickings. I guess they figured, I don't know whether it was her accent or just the way she acted or what it was, but they sure did hone down on her. I can't put anything past her mother. I'm trying to, and have tried to, through this case, use videos and photographs to try to express to you how the child was doing at different stages, because I believed that you would trust your eyes. You would trust what you could see and watch. And it's still true for after she got out of there. It still took her 10 months to get back even close to a baseline, and another 6 months of transitioning off to get off of those crutches. And she did it through hard work. And instead of it being looked at as a good thing, this is a sign somehow that they're right. You're actually taking credit for all of the incredible hard work Maya did on her own. And we all pretty much know why she was doing this. She wanted to prove something. She wanted to prove to them she could do it. It hurt like hell. She had no ketamine, no pain meds, scared out of her wits, family. And when you read their orders, you'll see that for the last 10 days to 12 days, the judge said, and no ketamine. Do you really think that this family was going to go back and try the ketamine that put them right back there in that power system? You think they're really going to go back to that? No. And that's why they didn't go back on the ketamine. Ketamine worked. It would have made her life so much easier. But Johns Hopkins, they ended that. In the Civil War, they would cut off off soldiers' arms and legs with a shot of whiskey as the anesthetic. That didn't make it good. That didn't make it state of the art. That's just what I had back then. The ketamine was there to help her get better and to help her reach the best that she could be. And they took that tool away from her. And
You're all right, Jeff.
sustain. Think of it this way. They believed, that Maya had recovered because of their treatment. What she did was have a remission. And we've spent, it's a devilish disease. And you can go for months, weeks, months, years, you can have a change like that. Exactly what happened in November of 2020, and then again in 2022. And think about this. This is during the period of her life where her immune system is at its absolute best. What's going to happen when life starts to chunks out of her? It's not a very good thought, but she's brave. I think she'll do it, but it's going to be a lot harder on her, and it shouldn't have been, because let me get to a point on this causation thing that the defense is talking about. So again, you're
An hour and a half old. 30 minutes out.
thank you, Jim. In your jury instructions, you will see an instruction on causation. And what it's going to say is that it doesn't have to be the only cause for you to award damage. It has to be one of the causes in the terms of suicide, a substantial cause. So you can have two acting and still award damages for it. And if it is the aggravation of a pre-existing condition, which in this instance would be the CRPS, you can look at the way she was before, and then she can look at after the torque user, in this case, Johns Hopkins, to see how it was after. Now here's the key. You can divide that up if you have the evidence to do so. Typically, it says, okay, 50%, 60% of this is pre-existing CRPS, and 40, you don't have that evidence here. You don't have that testimony in the record. Under the instructions you have, then, whatever CRPS she had, before it was complicated with PTSD, depression, and a failure for the first round of treatment to succeed, whatever that ended up to be, unless you can find a way to divide it up without medical testimony, 100% of what she ends up with is unfounded. It's not. So, when you're considering back there, well, she did have CRPS beforehand, and that's a difficult disease, you know, and I don't know if we can really blame Johns Hopkins. Well, you can't blame her for her having CRPS walking in, but you darn sure can for what happened walking out. And the fact is that with post-traumatic stress disorder, absolutely, I don't want to say earned, but imposed on the depression from a variety of factors, not the least of which is losing her mother, that aggravated it and will continue to aggravate it down the road. And here's the problem. What you see in the November of 2020 relapse was because of a psychological factor. That's what triggered it. That was not a physical factor. When she had the relapse, right before she went in during October of 2016, that was a psychological factor. So you had what's known as a clinical history of psychological factors aggravating her CRPS, right? You had the CRPS, and now you've got an overlay of a CRPS that has been complicated because the first round of treatment was not completed. The glial cells that Dr. Chopra talked about, that was not completed. That made her more susceptible to longer, more intense, more frequent of these relapses. And then you had an overlay on it of psychological issues, not her own, caused by them, that are going to aggravate her situation the rest of her life. And like I said, she's at the top of her game now biochemically. Wait till you get out in the real world and you start to age a little bit, and you start to have some things, life take bites out of you here and there. You're going to have some psychological issues come up. She's not going to be as equipped to deal with them as she could have been. Because Beata had a good plan. Beata had figured out very smartly how to deal with this. And although Maya would much prefer never to have this loathsome condition, her mom had figured out how to allow her to be best. Now that was taken. And so when you are back there considering the damages, I want you to consider, from Maya's perspective, how great she can be, could be, with the talent she has, her intelligence, her abilities. But to get there, what kind of stresses is she going to have to put herself through in order to get there? And then, from there, how is her aggravated illness going to react? Child hasn't even taken her SATs. She's in halfway through her senior year in high school. She hasn't applied to any universities. Yeah, back in 2019, she's ready to rock. She's ready to go. Life has a funny way of affecting you, doesn't it? And after you start thinking about what you went through, you start having a relapse, you lose a little bit of what you do, a little bit of drive. If she does overcome that, though, if she does try, think about psychological challenges of going to the type of school that she should, by all rights, go to, a top university. Think about the challenges she faces and the type of jobs that she should be able to do. That's where those big numbers come from. And they're not made up at all in any way. And I tell you how I know. If they had their own Dr. Bifulco, life care planner, where was it? No psychiatrist? No life care planner? If they had their own Dr. Tremp, talking about the freight way to college, which is what he was talking about before all this happened to her. If they had their own Dr. Tremp, where is he? If they had their own economist to figure this out, where is she? Okay. The kind of defense they put together, if there was somebody who truly was going to disagree with us, not going to think they'd be in here testifying about it. Instead of having the lawyer come in and attempt to pick here and there at the sidelines of what really happened to this family. And it's not just Kathy B. or Sally Smith or some of those nurses, and there were some good nurses there, we'll talk about that in a moment, but this was a problem endemic to the entire operation, and that's why they were in imminent jeopardy, IG, of losing their accreditation to be able to continue to receive federal funding and get approval from the agency that was overarching all hospitals, the industry leader there. This was an organization that was teetering and was trying to get its act together because its culture of people reporting problems was so toxic that they had to have multiple meetings and consultants and ideas of just how to fix it. And all that came well after the Kowalski family was involved. This went straight to the top. This ship never had a captain. And that's how you end up with these situations. It was a totally dysfunctional organization. And the Kowalskis paid the price. Paid the price. We didn't take. Nick did a great job, didn't he, on the numbers? I'm not so hard on the numbers, you know. But, they tried to minimize some of the effects of this. They tried to talk things down like, well, it was only 15 minutes that she was pinned down, stripped, photographed against her will. This is a 10-year-old girl. She's ill. She has a disease that will not allow her to escape in any way. She's in a wheelchair. She's in a place that she despises, around people she doesn't trust. And she's being photographed naked. And the way you know that is the other nurse came in and testified. Do we recall? Alcia H.C. I've got her name here. The other nurse that's seen in the picture. And she said, yes, Maya was stripped. Maya was naked. Yes, we did hold her down. And they, and we also know, because you saw the deposition testimony of Kathy Beatty, in which she said, unfortunately we did. That's not something you say if you're particularly proud of what went on. Which begs the issue that, and if Ms. Bate is willing, if you believed the other nurse, who frankly did not seem capable to me of misrepresenting anything, if you believed the other nurse that in fact Maya was stripped down, and if you believed that she was confirming what Maya testified to, and they never caught Maya in a single inconsistency in her depositions, did they? Not once. If you believe those two, that means that Kathy was willing to get in here in front of you and completely and utterly misrepresent the key fact in the case. How reliable is that testimony as to anything she has to say? Or was this the type of person getting voted to say almost anything to get themselves out of it, or what they perceive out of it? And for Jack, and I apologize to him for him ever having to hear Detective Graham's voice again. Lord knows that's traumatizing for him. Detective Graham's techniques in attempting to flip Jack by telling him, among other things, that I'll put you away for 20 years if I think you're harming that child, and trying to get him to say things against his own wife were completely and utterly despicable. Jack was faced with a circumstance where he did cooperate with this lady. He truly feared, A, he could go to jail, B, that they were going to work some way to make sure Maya never got out of it. And even then, he did best to protect his wife. But you know what? Wedge between Beata and Jack. It caused Jack to question the actions of his wife. And by the end, when you read the suicide notes, you'll see, for instance, that Beata actually gave the rights to her parental rights to her sister. By the end, and this gets into what happened with Beata, even her marriage to her appeared to be little and with problems. Child is away from her. She believes her child to be in desperate trouble. internally by about the strongest urge, maternal instinct that we know, and even in all mammals, let alone human beings. When you're looking to see whether you should check yes, that it was what Johns Hopkins did, whether they were a substantial factor or that she acted on impulse, please consider how powerful the maternal instinct is.
15 minutes.
I don't think these folks here get it. I still don't think they get it. Okay. Let's play then. This was a mom who loved her daughter. What I found interesting also while we're looking at it is that the defense took.
Is your video monitors on? Mr. Reyes, I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on and see if that cycles it. Is it there now? Try this. Did it come on now?
Well,
Is it there now? Mr. Reyes, I'm going to turn over to the left table. I'll try that. And Mr. Anderson, I'll give you a couple extra minutes.
just to note while we're waiting here, check out Exhibit 3115, which was that recording with Beatty coming in, and then compare it to their recording about can't talk, or the recording about can't talk about the case. It was Kennedy Beatty. Now, if we play 2695, is that like not be able to do it? What I'm trying to show here is two things. First, the relationship here between mother and daughter, and a little bit about what each of them lost.
I love you.
You see it?
Sit down.
All right.
Now go down
Big
slowly.
one.
Go down slowly. Good job. Good job. Very good. Excellent.
Is she supposed to still be faking there? I'm losing my timeline on whether or not they fake my CRPS or not. I don't think I'm going to try to go through every single tidbit they pulled out. I go back to again when I thought when I woke up at 1:30, which is I've been in the same court for Bolliel. So we all heard the evidence, all of the novel about every witness. So I have great confidence. That
17, or sorry, in questions 2, 7, or 12. There's a space for your answer, and it tells you to answer question 18. What is the total amount of Maya Kowalski's damages for pain and suffering, disability, physical impairment, mental anguish, inconvenience, and loss of capacity for the enjoyment of life sustained in the past and to be sustained in the future based on the battery occurring on January 6, 2017? In awarding damages, please do not duplicate any damages you awarded in question 13. There's a space for your answer. Please answer question 19. What is the reasonable value or expense of hospitalization in medical, psychological, and nursing care and treatment necessarily or reasonably obtained by Jack Kowalski for his child Maya Kowalski in the past or to be so obtained in the future based on Maya Kowalski reaches... I read that wrong. Let me read 19 again. What is the reasonable value or expense of hospitalization and medical, psychological, and nursing care and treatment necessarily or reasonably obtained by Jack Kowalski for his child Maya Kowalski in the past or to be so obtained in the future until Maya Kowalski reaches the age of 18 based on the battery occurring on January 6, 2017. In awarding damages, please do not duplicate any damages you awarded in questions 4, 9, or 14. Please answer question 20. Under the circumstances of this case, state whether you find by clear and convincing evidence that punitive damages are warranted for the battery occurring on January 6, 2017. You will either answer yes or no. The form tells you to answer question 21. This is the second subclaim for battery. Question 21. Did Catherine Beatty commit one or more batteries on Maya Kowalski through hugging, patting, kissing, and placing Maya Kowalski on her lap? You'll answer yes or no. If your answer to question 21 is yes, please answer question 22. If your answer to question 21 is no, your verdict is for Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital on this subclaim. Please skip questions 22 through 24 and go to and answer question 25. Question 22. What is the total amount of Maya Kowalski's damages for psychological treatment incurred in the future after she reaches the age of 18 based on Catherine Beatty's hugging, patting, kissing, and placing Maya Kowalski on her lap? In awarding damages, please do not duplicate any damages you awarded in questions 2, 7, 12, or 17. The form tells you to answer question 23. What is the total amount of Maya Kowalski's damages for pain and suffering, disability, physical impairment, physical or mental anguish, inconvenience, and loss of capacity for the enjoyment of life sustained in the past and to be sustained in the future based on Catherine Beatty's hugging, patting, kissing, and placing Maya Kowalski on her lap? There's a line for your answer and an instruction to answer question 24. What is the reasonable value or expense of hospitalization and medical, psychological, and nursing care treatment necessarily or reasonably obtained by Jack Kowalski for his child Maya Kowalski in the past or to be so obtained in the future until Maya Kowalski reaches the age of 18 based on Catherine Beatty's hugging, patting, kissing, and placing Maya Kowalski on her lap? In awarding damages, please do not duplicate any damages you awarded in questions 4, 9, 14, or 19. There's a place for your answer and instruction to answer question 25. We are now moving on to the claim 3, which is medical negligence. 25. Was Smith, an apparent agent of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital at the time and place of any treatment she provided to Maya Kowalski? You will answer either yes or no. If your answer to question 25 is yes, then Dr. Sally Smith is a healthcare provider for whom Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital is legally responsible. Please answer question 26. If, however, your answer to question 25 is no, then Dr. Sally Smith is not a healthcare provider for whom Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital is legally responsible. You will skip question 26 and go to and answer question 27. Question 26. Was Dr. Sally Smith negligent in the medical care of Maya Kowalski? And was that negligence a legal cause of loss or damage to Maya Kowalski? You'll answer either yes or no. You will then go to 27. Question 27. Excluding and not considering the conduct of Dr. Sally Smith, were one or more healthcare providers negligent in the medical care of Maya Kowalski at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital? And was their negligence a legal cause of loss, injury, or damage to Maya Kowalski? You will check yes or no. Now, if your answer to either question 26 or 27, or to both of those questions is yes, you will then answer question 28. If your answer to both questions 26 and 27 is no, your verdict is for Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital on this claim. You will then skip questions 28 and 29, and you will go to and answer question 30. Now, if your answer to question 27 is no, and you did not have to answer question 26, your verdict is for Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital. You will skip questions 28 and 29, and you will go to and answer question 30. Question 28. Difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. The lawyers and their representatives are not permitted to initiate any communication with you about the trial. However, you may speak to the lawyers or anyone else about the trial, subject to what my instruction to disclose the information of the deliberating jurors until this is all over. A request may come from those who are simply curious or from those who might seek to find fault with you, and it will be up to each of you to decide whether you wish to preserve your privacy as a juror. At this time, plaintiffs and defense, is the court able to discharge the alternates? Okay, the alternates are, and I'm going to use your jury numbers. Juror number 106, juror number 115, juror number 137, 138, and 155. I have your certificates here and jury notes. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your service. We'll all rise as the alternates leave. All right.
All right, yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens later. Let's see what the judge decision is. Not the judge, but what the jury is. But they did. The alternate people are already gone, so we'll see what the turnout be. I think that it was part. This is my thought about the trial. I believe that it's the mom fault for some of my illnesses. Yeah, the mom was part of the cause of her illnesses. You know, that's just my opinion. But y'all put in the chat what you think. Who you think? You know what was behind this you know, the situation with you. Do you think that hospital guilty? Which way you go? All right, y'all. I'm out, y'all.